Jonathan and Charlotte got married in 2012 and became superstars after their incredible performances on Britain's Got Talent. But after becoming famous around the world, the two went their separate ways. Fans have been wondering what really happened between them. Were they keeping secrets? Was there drama? Did being celebrities mess things up between them? After years of people guessing, the real story has come out, and fans have been looking at the truth the whole time. If you've heard Jonathan's powerful voice with Charlotte as his partner, you might think he grew up in a family of opera singers. But that's not true. Jonathan's parents weren't classical music singers at all. His dad was a police officer, and his mom was a housewife. Jonathan was a shy kid, and this came from something he was dealing with. Nobody knew about it, not even his parents. Because of this, he found it hard to be social, and he didn't feel confident when talking to people. But besides that, life was pretty normal for Jonathan until he started at West Hatch High School when he was 11 years old. That's where he met Charlotte Jaconelli. Charlotte was around the same age as him, but she was different from him. She was more outgoing and always full of confidence and could talk to people easily. Even though they were opposites, the two became friends because they both loved singing. Their school singing coach and music director, Jenny Ewington and Jeanette, noticed their talent. Ewington started teaching them, but it was clear that Jonathan had more natural ability. Under Ewington's guidance, Jonathan's talent began to grow and develop. Ewington let him sing freely, without worrying about being judged. He soon started to see her not just as a teacher, but also as a friend. But there was a problem that could ruin the peace he found in music. When Jonathan hit puberty, his voice started cracking at age 13. But Ewington had expected this. She was supportive and helped Jonathan get through this tough time as he grew. While she taught Jonathan, Charlotte was also being trained by her and Jeanette. The two quickly became the best singers at their school. But Charlotte was better at performing in front of crowds than Jonathan was. If Jonathan wanted to reach his full potential, he needed to figure out how to get over his shyness. So Ewington started encouraging him to perform at music events to help him overcome his fear of being in front of people. Jonathan faced the audience at the Stratford Music Festival. Even though he was scared, he remembered his training and gave an amazing performance. But his best was still to come. At the music festival in East London, the audience couldn't move as his voice mesmerized them. His performance was so incredible that he won the Young Musician of the Year award. Also, in 2011, he performed at London's Royal Festival Hall as part of the Youth Make Music event organized by Rotary. After this, Jeanette encouraged him to sing in concerts to help him completely overcome his shyness. He was getting better in front of audiences, but singing in concerts was very different. But Ewington and Jeanette had a plan. The two were paired together, and together they were magical. Charlotte helped boost Jonathan's confidence, and Charlotte and Jonathan were on a completely different level. But there was a problem. Both of them were confident in who they were as artists and liked performing alone. Both had different tastes in music. Jonathan loved classical opera, while Charlotte preferred musical theater, because she was passionate about acting too. But they put aside their preferences and created something beautiful. They kept performing together and were unstoppable at any event or occasion. When the pair took the stage, the audience was completely captivated. Together, they performed their song for exams, singing the prayer originally performed by Celine Dion and Andrea Bocelli. Their performance was so captivating that Jeanette asked them to sing the same song at her wedding ceremony. The two were perfect together, but they had to go separate ways for a while. When they were 14, they started auditioning for art schools. Jonathan auditioned for the 4 major music schools, including the Junior Royal Conservatory of London. His talent was undeniable, and every school accepted him. But Jonathan only had his eye on one, the Royal Academy of Music. He decided to start training there. Charlotte followed her dream of becoming an actress, studying singing and theater at London schools for students of theater and music. The two stayed in touch, and they decided they wanted more recognition. But how would they get it? Britain's Got Talent was created by Simon Cowell. He introduced America's Got Talent, the first franchise show, in 2006. The show was a huge success, and inspired by that success, Simon launched Britain's Got Talent in 2007, and it was also a hit. A singer was the show's first winner, and there was a singer in the top 3 every year. They got an idea from this. They would audition for the show. This meant they would be competing against the best of the best. But they didn't mind. They had faith in their abilities and what they could do together. But not everyone else did. The judges had the same reaction. They had the third series runner-up from 2009, Susan Boyle. The pair signed up for the sixth season of Britain's Got Talent, and Charlotte and Jonathan took the stage in 2012, performing for the first time in the series. But the judges weren't expecting much from them. They rolled their eyes when they saw a clumsy, overweight, and poorly dressed Jonathan. They expected that he would be overcome by shyness. They thought they were going to see a complete train wreck of a performance. They had a surprise coming for them, but the pair was hiding a secret weapon. They knew the song that would give them the best chance of passing the audition stage. They had performed it twice at important events and had perfected it. When they started singing this song, the audience fell silent. The pair took them on an amazing spiritual journey and pulled at their emotions. Nobody could avoid feeling intense emotions as these two performed the prayer. Even the judges who had originally doubted them were completely amazed. After the pair finished, the judges, including the usually serious Simon Cowell, and everyone else was stunned. But Simon had a concern. He thought Charlotte was holding Jonathan back. Remember, these two were used to being independent artists and had different interests when it came to music. Hearing something like this could hurt their egos. It might make Jonathan think he was the better artist. Simon pressed harder and suggested that Jonathan should drop Charlotte. He even compared Jonathan to the legendary Luciano Pavarotti and said he hadn't heard such a great opera voice in years. This was a big moment for Jonathan. Should he listen to Cowell or stick with his partner? Jonathan decided to stay. Despite his talent, he knew Charlotte brought a lot of energy to the pair. He wasn't as confident as she was. Without Charlotte, he might have to leave early no matter how good he was. So the two kept singing together. But they couldn't shake Simon's words. It seemed like Simon was thinking something, that they should part ways from each other. And the other judges seemed to be thinking the same thing. Doubt had been effectively planted, and Charlotte seemed to feel it. She started to question herself. So they changed their name order and became Charlotte and Jonathan. Charlotte was now under a lot of pressure. For the first time in a long time, her confidence was shaken, but she wasn't ready to give up. At the semi-final stage, she sang Caruso with Jonathan. The song is by Lucio Dalla. It was an uplifting performance, and the audience and the judges were amazed. Somehow, the pair had managed to surpass their performance from the audition. Judge Alicia Dixon praised Jonathan for his strong performance and complimented Charlotte for overcoming the pressure she felt to stand tall with Jonathan. She admired Charlotte's refusal to let comment about Jonathan's superior talent distract her or make her feel like just half of the pair. She praised the pair for maintaining their friendship and told them about their unique chemistry. This was exactly what Charlotte needed to hear, and it was true. According to the judges, she wasn't holding Jonathan back after all. Judge Amanda Holden admitted she had agreed with Simon Cowell's words, but now thought she and Jonathan were meant to work together. After hearing Amanda's words, Charlotte felt more relieved, but Simon was still on her mind. She wanted to hear from him. She wanted him to take back his statements, and he did. Simon admitted his mistake too. He gave them credit for staying together and said that he now recognized their chemistry and loved their support for each other. Was Simon acting crazy when he messed with the pair before? Was he testing things to see how they might respond to challenges? Or did he just want to create conflict between the two? The final judge, David Williams, liked the way the two proved Simon wrong. As he put it, he was completely supportive of them even though he knew what they were singing and praised both of them as outstanding singers. David even predicted that they would win the championship, and they almost did. In the end, they performed the prayer once more, but this time it was on a new level and everyone thought they would win. Fans got up to applaud for them. The auditorium was full of excitement. However, they ultimately ended up as runners-up, losing by a small margin to Ashley and Pudsey, her adorable puppy. Fans were sorry they didn't win, but Charlotte had a different perspective. She was happy to see her and Jonathan place second among 70,000 people and was thankful for the opportunity. Jonathan didn't feel as excited as she did. He felt a severe discomfort in his gut and his heart sank. They had put everything into it, But they still lost. Could he have thought Charlotte caused him to lose? Did he wonder privately if she was holding him back? Jonathan stayed quiet on stage, but he couldn't stop crying after. He was no longer in his comfort zone and faced his fears head-on. Still, he congratulated the winners and complimented their animal-based act, which he said he could never do. Jonathan couldn't stop himself from feeling down, but he was able to quickly snap out of it for the next step. The next day, Simon Cowell came over to Jonathan and Charlotte. He wanted them together and offered them a recording contract worth £1 million with Psycho, his record label. Although the contract was huge, it favored Jonathan over Charlotte, as it didn't include the musical theater that Charlotte was enthusiastic about. But Jonathan stood by Charlotte, and the two of them announced that they would do some musical theater in the future. The pair started working right away and released their first album on September 24th, 2012, both in the UK and in America. After a month, Simon was committed to making sure the pair succeeded and regretted his suggestion that they split up. He apologized to the two, and at last Charlotte felt that validation. They were suddenly celebrities, and they were living fast-paced lives while still being teenagers. ITV broadcast a documentary about them, and viewers were able to learn more about the young stars. Even though they were now famous, the two wanted more. They thought they were incomplete singers yet, but they were committed to learning from the best. So they left for Italy and France to go for final education for talent show graduates to finish their music training. The pair got guidance from Luciano Leone Maggiore, the vocal teacher for Pavarotti, saw the Italian opera's birthplace La Scala, and received instruction from renowned tenor Rolando Villazon in Paris. They also received career advice from Katherine Jenkins, but no advice could make a difference. The desire the two felt to follow their own paths remained. Charlotte was still determined to do musical theater, and it was clear that as long as she continued to work with Jonathan, she couldn't do this. The two kept working together, and on October 14th, 2013, they launched their second album. By now, it was no longer avoidable. Uncomfortable conversations had to be held about the pair's future. Also, in February 2014, Sony gave them the opportunity to have their discussion. Sony made the two a new contract offer, but there was a clause. They had to split up at that point. Both had known that it would happen. The two agreed that they had reached their peak, and there was nothing fresh that they wanted to do anymore. They'd worked together ever since they were in high school, and each had been helpful to the other. Jonathan, who was initially shy, had gained confidence and was eager to experiment. Charlotte had to deal with being told constantly that she wasn't as talented as Jonathan, and rather than becoming insecure, she had grown more confident in her own abilities. The pair issued a statement saying that Sony gave them both solo record deals. The most exciting thing was that it was a classical deal ever, and they were excited to return to the recording studio. Finally, Charlotte could go explore musical theater. But musical theater didn't work out while she thought about it, as you'll see. Look, her debut solo album was released in July 2014, Solitaire, and she stayed successful as a singer. It appears Simon wasn't wrong after all. Was he? In reality, was it the money from their Sony contracts that caused them to part ways? Or was it because of their desire to try something new? What do you think? It might be something else, an unspoken thing, especially considering how the two acted toward each other after the breakup. We'll talk about that with you later in the video. Jonathan didn't go into the studio right away. He was now the most confident version of himself and made the decision to do a UK tour before the album's release. With the recognition he received, he became highly sought after and started his career in the U.S. and gave a performance at Muhammad Ali's Celebrity Fight Night in 2014 in California, Arizona, and Florida. He was very happy, though this was only the beginning. Jonathan released Tenore, his first solo album, in October 2014, and it became a huge hit. One reviewer praised his genius and declared, "This is a new vocal star seen by his debut solo record and his enchanted ability." Jonathan waited for more than a year before releasing his next album, Believe, in 2016. This record was also positively reviewed, and it was said that Jonathan had an incredibly versatile, powerful, smooth, and creamy voice. He took that creamy voice to the U.S. in 2018 for his debut performance as a solo artist. That performance was amazing, but he wasn't alone. It was a brilliant one. Charlotte was also living her dream. At last, she had taken a shot at musical theater 4 years after splitting up. She made her debut in The Boy. Get ready for her debut performance. Because after that she had an appearance in Heather's a Musical, then Sunset Boulevard next to Nicole Scherzinger, and A Midsummer Night's Dream at Shakespeare's Globe Theater. Following his performance in the United States, Jonathan performed at the Winter Garden Theater in Canada in June 2019 for a 3-part concert. He brilliantly performed Disney songs for the audience, along with American standards, opera, and songbook classics. It seemed that the two former partners were doing well on their own, but unfortunately there was a price for success. They lost touch and barely exchanged words. It doesn't appear that the pair will perform a duet anytime soon. Both of them said that they were too busy to stay in touch all the time with one another, and the conversations grew to almost nothing. Even during the holidays, neither of them reached out to each other. What kind of busy schedule could cause them to become so disconnected? Did the two have a secret fight? They have been friends since 2006 and are simply losing touch because of work. It doesn't seem particularly convincing. On the surface, the split was happening because they were eager to try new things. Their different interests were a major factor in it. They also didn't need each other anymore. Was their friendship simply traded away? Or did Jonathan's condition come into play here? Jonathan has always struggled with his weight, and his American debut didn't help him get it under control. He became lost in the fast food culture in America, and his weight became completely unmanageable. Dedicated to leading a healthier lifestyle, Jonathan deliberately tried to cut back on carbohydrates and started working out. But at first, Jonathan wasn't consistent. Later on, he became more reliable. By adopting a new walking lifestyle of 10,000 steps a day, no matter what, even pacing a single room back and forth, he made significant weight loss. But he isn't stopping and acknowledges that he has a long way to go. Jonathan is taking his physical well-being seriously. He is more aware and is attending to his mental health too. In 2022, soon after his birthday, Jonathan was diagnosed with autism. For this reason, forming friendships can be challenging for him. Instead, he travels with his entire family, and they help stabilize him. Because of his autism, he had to cope with shyness for a big part of his early years. With awareness about his autism, Jonathan has become more in control of himself, and Charlotte was so helpful in helping him accomplish this at a young age. Do you think he would get back in touch with Charlotte for one more duet?